Thank you so much. It's always an honor to be here to talk with people who are very like-minded and concerned about things that I believe we're all concerned about. I'm primarily a storyteller. I love to tell stories, and in this way to relate to people lessons and morals, and share the way that our native people shared their knowledge. Storytelling is very important because it's very powerful. We believe that stories are extremely powerful, that they have the power to touch your heart, to touch your soul in a way that you can create change. And when we look around and look at this earth the way it's changed, that is a story to us. These are all stories that touch us. When we hear about those things that have happened to the earth that make us cry, those are stories. The same way that a storyteller would tell a story that would touch you enough to bring tears to your eyes. The things that are happening to this earth are stories. And the stories that are told to us by the earth are stories that we need to take to heart. These are the kind of stories that give us inspiration when we see that something is wrong, that something is being destroyed. It's a story. And in usually every story, there's some kind of a resolution to what the problem is. And I think that if we hear this story from the earth, the resolution to this problem, some of the things that we can do are actually another story that comes from us. It comes from within. It comes from the fact that we can take action. We can be a part of those things that will create a change in the earth. A change back to the good, not a change forward that will destroy many of the things that we love on the earth. I'd like to tell you a story. And this story is one that talks about the beginnings of the earth. We can't forget about where we came from. We can't forget about how things begin, because things that begin always have some very, very powerful morals and virtues that we can look at, and we can take these things to heart and be a part of that. So I'm going to tell you this story. My people, the Kalapuya of the Willamette Valley, were once the largest Western Oregon Indian tribe. There were once 15,000 plus Kalapuya people who lived all the way from Roseburg to the south, all the way from the falls at Oregon City up north. 15,000 people who saw in just a few short years the demise of the culture through disease and the encroachment of the settlers. Our people lived on this land, and we tended the land. We didn't try to conquer the land, but we made sure that this land was beautiful. We made sure that the land was productive by burning fields. We made sure that our families had food, had resources. But my people believe that this is something that we shouldn't take for granted, because our beginnings have many lessons. You see, it was a very, very long time ago, and the world was made of stone. And not far from here there arose a large stone mountain. And at the very top of that stone mountain, something came to life. And that life became known as Tlilu, first woman, who walked down from that stone mountain with two babies clutched to her breast. And as she walked, every time she'd take a step, the grass began to grow. And when she'd stop and touch the ground, the water began to flow. And she walked until she came to the bottom of that stone mountain. And she saw Quartuk's Mother Wolf. Mother Wolf said, "Who are you?" She said, "I'm Tlilu, First Woman." And Quartuk's Mother Wolf looked at her and said, "Where did the babies come from?" And Tlilu, First Woman, said, "I dreamed of them and they came to me. But this is a new world. And I need to find some place where I can live, a place where I can feed my babies. But I also need someone to watch these babies while I go out and look around in the world." And Quartuk's Mother Wolf looked at Tlilu, First Woman, and she smiled and her teeth flashed in the sun, and she said, "I will watch the babies." Now Tlilu was a little bit afraid, but something right inside of her heart made her trust Quartuk's Mother Wolf. And so she wove a large pack basket and strapped it to the back of Mother Wolf and put her babies inside. And just to make sure that those babies were safe and they wouldn't fall out of that basket, she wove 2 straps and strapped those babies around their heads so that they would be safe in that basket. And she went around and looked around in the world. She was gone a long time, and when she came back, she looked. She couldn't find Quartuk. She couldn't find Mother Wolf, and she searched for a long time, but as she came around one part of the stone mountain, there in a protected area was Quartuk's Mother Wolf with the babies on her back, safe. And Tlilu, First Woman, ran up to them and unstrapped them from the basket and took them out, and they were healthy and they'd grown. But she noticed that something was different. She had strapped the babies so tightly around their head that their forehead was flattened. And she said, "This is good. From now on, our people will flatten the foreheads of babies in honor of Mother Wolf. And indeed, our people, the Kalapuya, have always flattened the heads of babies until it became illegal in the last part of the 1800s. You see, if you've ever seen the profile of a wolf, you will see that the forehead is indeed flattened. And this is what we did in honor of Mother Wolf. Now we believe that Quartuk is sacred. Kalapuya people never killed the wolf. Only certain people could even possess the skins of wolf because it was sacred. When the settlers came, they had different ideas of the big bad wolf and Little Red Riding Hood and the 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf. All of these horrible stories from Europe about what a bad person wolf was. So they began killing wolves. There used to be bounties on wolves. For a wolf this size, maybe 50 cents in those days for the skin of a wolf. And this is about an average size wolf that you would see in Oregon a long time ago. And they began killing them for the bounty. Problem was, they would send them back east and, of course, use the fur for decoration on garments and even for decorations around the edges of blankets. But some of the places where these skins were traded in, the trading posts along the Umpqua River, they didn't know how to preserve these skins. In one account of a man who ran a trading post on the Umpqua River near Scottsburg, he said, "The skins of the dirty wolves piled up today so high it was the height of a man's shoulder, and they stank, and we pushed them in the river. And so, pretty soon there were no more wolves. The wolves were all gone. This is a part of how we used to look at the earth. We looked to see that the wolves perhaps were our friends in a sense. We believed that wolves were our protectors. My grandchildren saw that the wolf took care of the first babies, and when they'd come to stay the night, they'd want Quartux sleeping on the foot of their bed because they knew Quartux was a good guy. Things that are taken away because of ignorance or because of inaccurate information, those are some of the things that are destroying our earth. When we don't understand what is going on, things like this happen. Of course, now people are trying to reintroduce wolves into Oregon, and ranchers and farmers don't like that because they kill their livestock, understandably. That's the time to talk, the time to negotiate, instead of closing off your mind to being absolutely defiant in what people want. This wolf was killed over 80 years ago, and I was gifted this skin, and so I feel really very fortunate. But the killing of the wolf is akin to many of the things that happened a long time ago to our beautiful land here in Oregon. Our people, the Kalapuya, and many, many other tribes in Western Oregon, used to burn the valley. And when the settlers came, they saw this as a real threat. Some of the early explorers wrote in their journals that the entire valley was afire. And of course, when towns began to be built and settlers had their homesteads, they were afraid that these fires would burn down the towns, burn down the barns. And so there was a law that was passed that the Indian people had to stop burning. We'd burn the fields every late summer. And each family would have responsibility for a certain area. But the settlers didn't see it that way. They thought that perhaps maybe we lit a match and let everything just burn out of control. So we use this burning of the valley for many beneficial reasons. To get rid of brush. There was never poison oak down here. We never had brush or all kinds of noxious weeds. It was a way where we could concentrate the game animals into an area where there was a group of trees or some woods. It was a way to burn the flowers, the heads of the wild sunflower, the salala, so that we could take those seeds and extract the oils so we could use that oil in ceremonies, which was very sacred to us. The seeds were also used as food. The fires destroyed the grasshoppers. Actually, they provided us with grasshoppers to eat. And when the ban on this field burning came about, within 2 years, there were plagues of grasshoppers in the Willamette Valley that destroyed the farmers' crops. So there was always an impact of what someone will do without thinking it through. I think that thinking things through about what the impact on the earth is going to be is something that people are finally getting. They're finally realizing that one thing that is done is going to impact something else. You can go to something as simple as plastic bag bans, or recycling bottles, or any of these sorts of things that we know is going to save the earth, but yet I still hear a lot of people say, oh, what good is it going to do? You know, what harm can it be if I toss a couple of plastic bags in the garbage? So I think to encourage people to think things through and not think right in front of their noses is really an important part of our knowledge of the earth. We should take our knowledge of the earth from the ancestors who took care of the earth, who didn't try to change it. The people here in Oregon were not particularly agricultural because we had so many resources here, but we didn't fish all the fish out. We didn't take all of the freshwater clams. We didn't just burn everything in sight. We dug up the camas that was enriched by the burning of the fields. We ate the grasshoppers. We used the salawa seeds. And those things that we did always had very beneficial sorts of results for us. These are the things we need to really think about. Every time I see one of my granddaughters putting a pop bottle in the garbage, I get on their case. Don't do that. It's called recycling. You have to recycle. Because what's going to happen if, the 10 soda cans you throw in there during a week, what happens to those in the garbage? Are those going to disappear in a couple of days? If you can recycle them, then you're doing something for the earth. And I think that this sort of a thing is what we all need to think about, to think and think and think into the future. I was raised actually among my father's people over on the Oregon coast. And I watched the almost complete destruction of what was going on. I watched them when they discovered this wonderful, wonderful bed of scallops off the coast of Coos Bay. Oh, scallops, wow, that is really great. Well, within a month and a half, they were saying, I wonder why there's no more scallops out there. And I said to myself, could it be that because the 30 fishing boats that went out there every day perhaps took everything? I go down there and I want to go out on the rocks and collect those wild mussels. They're not there anymore. Only a few places. I don't want my grandchildren to have to experience this so that they can say, I was a part of helping, that I was a part of healing the earth. And we all have to look at ourselves as healers because we are healers of the earth. Even the smallest thing that you do is going to be a bit of a help. So I thank you so much for listening to me. Kame Mutsugamkena.